Of the Phony funeral home trial happening in Toledo, Ohio. Defendant Shawnte Hardin is a reverend, known and beloved in many parts of Ohio, is facing now dozens of charges, including abuse of a corpse and representing himself as a funeral director while unlicensed. Hardin has opted to have a bench trial before his honor. The Honorable Michael Goulding is presiding over this one. Really smart judge, asking great questions of several of the witnesses. Fate of the defendant once all of the evidence is in. Now, today, the state called a number of family members of the decedents in this case who've testified to the defendant's alleged practices as a fake funeral director. Now, the court's taking an extended lunch break, and we're going to take you live into the courtroom as soon as the state's case in chief resumes. But first, we want to take you to Toledo, where we find Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae at the courthouse to give us the latest on this one. Julia, good to see you. If we could, please, could we talk about that moment in court today when one of the family members of a decedent wanted to make a statement to his honor? And do we think the prosecution was expecting this from the witness?
Well, Julie, it really doesn't seem like the prosecution was expecting this, and this is just a perfect example of how different a bench trial can be compared to a jury trial. This is something that would not have been allowed to happen in front of a jury. Likely they would have been told to disregard it if this witness had said it and not asked permission first. But the woman who was actually testifying was Amina Podzik. There were two relatives of one of those corpses that were entrusted to this defendant. That's Rifat Podzik. We've heard that name over and over. It's a body that the prosecution alleges was left in an abandoned apartment behind a church, where a neighbor noticed it and called police, and police came to that scene and found two bodies that were there inside, and they believed that they were decomposing and in a state that was just not proper. But here's what the daughter testified to after she gave all of the details that the prosecution was looking for about a painful process of getting her father's body after an accident, an autopsy, and then trying to get it shipped to Bosnia.
Can I just say one more thing?
What would you like to say, ma'am?
I just want to say that I don't believe that Shawnte is a bad person, and I believe that somebody sent him there, and there's always one person ahead of somebody else that is making the calls and doing bad stuff, but you're never going to catch those people.
Absolutely something we don't typically see inside of a courtroom, but that was part of the end of her testimony inside of this courtroom. She then left, but overall, that has not been the sentiment that we've heard from people on the stand today, mostly family members sharing emotional stories about really a harrowing time in their life, one where they lost a loved one and then came to this defendant for services.
Yeah, certainly extremely upsetting to these folks who've been through all this, what they've had to endure and then kind of relive as they're called to testify and then recount these upsetting incidents. Tell me, Julia, I know you spoke to one woman who told you that she considered Hardin a friend before she came to him for funeral services. What did she have to tell you today, please?
All right, we were actually able to talk to Mary Jenkins after she testified yesterday. She's someone who she's in the ministry, and she knew this defendant through his pastoral duties. The fact that he was in a collection of churches that she was a member of. She wasn't actually a member of his church, but she said that he was on his way to becoming a bishop. She trusted him. And then when her father passed away, that's when she reached out to him, because she believed, I already know someone who is in this business. He's let me know over time that he works with funerals and is a funeral director. Take a listen to how she reacted to being there in the courtroom with someone that she had known for years. Looking at him in the courtroom today when you were testifying, what were you thinking?
Honestly, I tried not to look at him because he was my friend. He was my friend. I did not know that all this was going on. I knew that he provided services, but I truly believed that he was a funeral director and that he was doing what funeral directors do. I had no idea that he was not a funeral director. I'm like, that was my friend though. And so when I reached out to him when my father died, I reached out to him believing that everything was going to go great because this is my friend. He knew my dad. So
Tell me about your dad.
he was retired military. So he was in the Air Force. So he was all about, you know, order and discipline and structure and all those things. And he was my biggest fan, my biggest cheerleader. And so honestly, when he passed away, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
The charges in the indictment that relate to the death of Mary Jenkins' father, Sylvester, have to do with tampering with records, telecommunications fraud. He's listed underneath those charges on the indictment. She said that she wanted her father cremated, and it took a long time for her to actually get a response from this defendant, only to find out that all along her father's remains were in police lockup. But take a listen to her detailing what she went through after her father's funeral. What's the hardest part about the process? What you were going through? I know you testified to all of it, but take us through in the days, in the weeks, in the time that followed after your father died. What was the worst part of what you say this defendant did to you?
The worst part was the weight. The weight and the untruths, the lack of communication. Sean, he asked me if I wanted to take the box that had my dad's remains in it. I said no because I wanted them in the urn. I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to have my dad in the urn that we had talked about that had the military insignia on it. That's what I wanted. So I told him to go ahead and take them. And then when I started asking them, it's like, okay, it's been a week. You know, how long does it take, you know, to get an urn? And then it's been 2 weeks, and then it's been a month, and then it's been 2 months.
What do you think was going on here?
For me, I was like, okay, maybe we're not really friends, because it didn't make sense the way that the relationship was going. There was no communication. It was like, okay, you're telling me you're coming, but you're not showing up and you're not responding. Why? And so that was happening over and over again to the point that my sons were like, Mom, you know, when he tells you he's coming, he's not going to show up.
Now, ultimately, Jenkins had to contact the authorities to get them involved, and that's when she was ultimately able to piece together that they had raided the defendant's car and had all of those items in their own lockup. But she says she was calling him, she was texting him, she was speaking with him, and he kept promising to bring them and never mention what had happened to those remains. So that's really echoing what we are hearing in court even today, Julie.
What a nightmare for Mary Jenkins, Julia. I'm glad you got a chance to sit down with her. When you think about what these victims are going through, some of it's just unimaginable. It's bad enough they're losing a loved one, but yet they have to deal with something such as these incidents being detailed before the court at the hands, allegedly, of somebody putting themselves out there to be in a position of authority as a funeral director. Tell me, when they give their testimony, are you noticing most of these witnesses, victims, are staying in the gallery and continuing to watch the trial, or any of them kind of holding on to each other for support?
We are seeing them not necessarily staying in the gallery to watch this trial, but I see them communicating out in the hallway. Sometimes they're waiting to go in to testify. Sometimes they wait after their testimony, and they're sharing their stories with each other. They are realizing the similarities. You can see them sharing in the sympathy of this very strange but heartbreaking in many ways situation that they realize other people have gone through. I noticed that interaction yesterday, even with Heather Al-Husseini. She was actually someone who testified about her mother, Barbara Patel, a gravestone that never showed up, that she paid for, and a funeral process that she simply said was not right. Take a listen to her process and why she says she trusted this defendant. How difficult was it today being there in the courtroom? I know you have family with you.
It was just kind of sad that when I looked at him, like, you're a man of God and you deceived many people. But my niece, she took it hard.
Did you know how many people that he has been accused of deceiving?
I don't know the exact amount. I just know it's a lot.
Were you surprised that there were others who were like you?
No, because when we had trouble in the beginning, we called to report it to the Ohio Directors of Funerals Association. All I said, I want to report a man who did wrong. He's a minister and he does funerals. They already knew his name right away. That's how many people called. So that told me right there it's too many to count.
Now, one of the reasons these witnesses, a lot of them are not staying for the entire trial, they're driving 2 and 3 hours away to come here to this courthouse in Lucas County. Some of them are in Columbus, in Akron, so this is not an easy trek for them to make, but you see that dual grief, not only having to relive the loss of their loved one, but then also remembering the horrible process that they say they went through after that person died.
It's just awful, Julia. Our hearts go out to them. Thank you so much for your reporting. I know the court's on the extended break now, but we'll look forward to more reports from you throughout the day. Julia Janae live for us in Toledo, Ohio, where this trial's taking place.